I'm gonna pack up, baby. Down the road I go. I give you all my money and you go downtown. Come back in the evening when the sun goes down. Oh, baby, what's getting wrong with you? You don't treat me nothing like you used to do. Like you used to do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Later at the casino, lost all the money. She said, don't you feel sorry for me now? Don't you feel sorry, honey? You wanna do a lady a favor? Here's what I want you to do. To darling, till the next time I see you. The last $2 ain't gonna lose. The last $2 sure ain't gonna lose. Got one for my mama, got one for the jukebox. Got to play some blues. Over here, my man treated me right. I came here trying to catch him. He's been sticking around every night. I got caught up over here. I got caught up in a scene. I put all my money in that no-go gambling machine. But the last $2 ain't gonna lose. Well, I so darling, sure ain't gonna lose. Got one for my bus bound, got one for the jukebox. Got to play some blues. We're saying. Over here, my man treated me right. I came here trying to catch him. He been sneaking around every night. I got caught up over here. I got caught up in a scene. I put all of my money in that doggone gambling machine. Last $2 ain't gonna lose. Last $2 sure ain't gonna lose. Got one for my bus band, got one for the jukebox. Got to play some blues. Last $2 sure ain't gonna lose. The last $2 sure ain't gonna lose. Got one for my bus band, got one for the jukebox. Got to play some blues. More time. Last $2 sure ain't gonna lose. The last $2 sure ain't gonna lose. Got one for my bus band, got one for the jukebox. Got to play some blues.
Larry Taylor Soul and Blues Band. Thanks very much, Larry. Come on down and join me. Welcome to Speaking of the Blues, everybody. This is the Larry Taylor Soul and Blues Band, and you've just heard some blues and soul from Larry. Welcome. Speaking of the blues, the ongoing Oral History Blues Project brought to you by the Harold Washington Library Music Archives, Blues Archives, Music Information Center, and the Chicago Cable Office. And Blues Archives celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. Larry Taylor, very interesting musician, from a very interesting family. Larry literally grew up at the feet of the masters, coming up in a household. His stepfather was Eddie Taylor, the great guitar player who recorded with John Lee Hooker and Jimmy Reed, and toured internationally as well. And his mother was Vera Hill, a singer as well. And I always got a kick out of the fact that you and your brothers and your performing parents grew up on Mozart Street, right, named for the composer, of course. And if you hold up your CD there is the latest CD, and it's entitled "They Were in This House." A very interesting concept. We will talk about why it's named that. Larry's music is a combination of blues and soul, and he stresses that his music reflects the music that you would hear in his native West Side neighborhood, which is more typical, he would say, than what you might find on the North Side touristy blues scene. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
You were born in Chicago.
That's correct.
You need to put your microphone on, sorry. We need to hear your responses. There you go. Born in Chicago, right here in Chicago, Mozart near Roosevelt, where you grew up. And as I said, that was a very musical house. Tell us a little bit about that. They Were in This House. What does that title mean?
Well, They Were in This House is basically a tribute to, I give tribute to all the great blues masters and fathers of the blues. Not only the great fathers of the blues, but also fathers of the rock and roll.
Yes.
The music that you hear today, the rock and roll it originated from a lot of the guys like Johnny Lee Hooker, my dad, and many others, Sonny Lance Snell. These were the guys who brought the rock and roll scene about. I give tribute to people like my dad, Muddy, and so on, different other legends, Howlin' Wolf, the real Howlin' Wolf, Chester Burnett, and Muddy, and I just go down the list. There's a lot of.
And the point is that they were in that house.
They were in this house.
When you were a kid.
Jimmy Reed, all of them. They were in this house, right?
And your mother would cook, and they'd come over and
My
enjoy
mother
your mother's
would.
cooking?
My mother would cook. I will never forget about the time when Howlin' Wolf, he used to come over, and he used to love my mother to cook greens, and he would sit there and eat the whole thing. You know, I mean, it wasn't a problem. You know, this is how it was in urban black life. You know, as we see it. You know, it wasn't really about a lot of money, but it was about a lot of fun.
It was about community, it sounds
that's
like.
Right, it was about community, you know, and coming up, you know, and me as a kid, I got a chance to be around them firsthand, and I'm grateful and I'm blessed in so many ways.
Did you have any idea that they were internationally known, or that they were creating rock and roll, or rock and roll had sort of been started at that point?
You know, I mean, from a kid, I mean, I watched them, and I knew something was very clicking there with them concerning with the music. You
Now they actually played in the house.
I knew that the post-war blues during the time of the 50s and 40s and 50s would eventually turn into the rock and roll era. As you know, during the rock and roll era in the 50s, that Jimmy Reed was one of the most successful blues artists.
Yes, he was.
Right, along with people like St. Louis Jimmy, who made it in the rock and roll era.
Sure, what they would say today is a crossover hit.
That's right.
You move over from just one genre to many genres, and it's selling to the general population and not just a niche audience. And of course, that's absolutely true. Now, the musicians were actually in the house. They practice in the house?
They were actually in the house.
Or have parties?
They had parties, they had rehearsals, they had talks, you know. I mean, I got a chance to be there when they had talks, you know, like one of my great ground mentors was like Cassell Barrow. There was a guy who was called Winehead Willie Williams.
Winehead Willie Williams, yeah.
There was a couple others.
Chicken House Shorty.
Chicken House Shorty, yeah. You know, all these great guys. You know.
Which leads to an interesting question. Growing up in the household of a well-known guitarist, so many in your family became drummers. Your brother Tim, you, one of your sisters I know drums. Doesn't Eddie play a little drums?
Yeah.
I should introduce the band. On guitar is Larry's brother, Eddie Taylor. And their other brother, Tim Taylor, also has played drums for years with Willie Kent's band and a number of other bands, toured internationally. And I know at least one of your sisters, Demetria, plays the drums.
Demetrius.
And your sisters all sing. And,
all my sisters sing, yes.
A lot of music in that house.
Yeah, they all sing.
And often they'll come out and perform when they're performing. On bass we have Osee Anderson, who's also a guitar player. And on piano is Bonni, Barrelhouse Bonni. And I should have said that right off the bat. I'm sorry, my apologies. Well, now to get back to your story, was there, how did the drums get into the picture then? Was it because there were all these drummers at the house?
No, it's just basically, I just had a natural love for the music as a kid. I mean, I wasn't like most children fortunate enough to have instruments, so I learned how to basically play the drums on boxes, pots
and pans.
Anything that would make a rhythm.
Yeah.
You know, and
sort of a compulsion. You had to beat out the rhythm.
And I developed the skill for a lot of days there where I spend sometimes 3, 4, 5 hours a day practicing.
Is that right?
That's all I wanted to do was just practice.
So now, did some of these guys actually sort of take you under their wing a little bit?
They took me under their wing. See, you know, I often have a saying, you know, in order to be a master, you have to watch the masters and learn under the masters.
I love that line, and I was going to ask you about that. That's a great line. In order to be a master, you have to watch the masters. And you had it in your mind that you knew there were masters and that you wanted to be like that.
I knew it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, because these were the guys who took me up under the wings when I first came out to start playing music. I mean, you know, you was there in the clubs, you know, Sunnyland and Big Smokey Smothers and all the other guys, the legendary blues players. I always hung up under the traditional artists, you know, somewhat on the R&B and soul circuit, but I mostly learned from the blues masters because within the blues is the root of all American music that you hear today. And if it wasn't for the blues, there would be no music, there would be no rock and roll, there would be no pop, there would be no rap, there would be no Michael Jackson, there would be none of it.
That's actually a very good argument, and a lot of new literature on the subject is agreeing with you on that topic. And more will be coming out in the future, I'm sure, to show how important blues has been to American music. Let's see, I got out of order here. Were there also records around the house?
Yeah, there were old records around the house. They had, during them time, you know, they only had the little one track. It was 78s. I remember the really big 78s. I remember some of the very first 78s I heard, you know, like some like Bobby Blue Bland and different people like that. I even got a chance to hear some of Johnny Little John's first stuff on the 78
Chicago guitar player?
with the Aces, you know, Louis Miles, Dave Miles, the Miles brothers. So, you know, I got a chance to hear quite a bit of stuff. And they would play different blues songs, Robert Nighthawk, of the Big Boy Crew. I mean, so you name it. I mean, it goes back. Charlie Patton, I mean, whatever. All type of music was played in my house, all type of music.
So now, you didn't see that as old-fashioned at all, or?
Of course not.
Of course not. Well,
of course not.
A lot of people would. The music of another generation is not something they want to latch on to.
I didn't see it as that. I took a grasp hold of something that many kids didn't take an opportunity to do. They was interested in other stuff, playing baseball or doing something else in the neighborhood, you know, but my interest was strictly try to be successful with music, and not only to learn the music, but to also understand the history of the music.
And a lot had not been documented by then. So when did you first start playing? What were some of your early gigs? Who were you playing with when you first played?
Well, some of my first, I remember, well, one of my first early gigs was like with my stepdad. He took me on his wing and showed me a lot about the music. He really, I give the credit a lot to him because he was the one that showed me practically everything, all the tricks, ins and outs about the music. And then he turned me over to other people like Jimmy Rogers, Big Walter Horton, you know, and the list goes on and on. Moose Walker, you know.
Those are great names.
You know, it went on. Johnny Littlejohn, you know, James Scott, Left Hand Frank. I mean, I'm just going down the line with people.
And even though a lot of those names may not be familiar to a lot of people, those are all significant people. Those are all
significant people too.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that
great contributions to the blues.
Right, it's unfortunate they didn't record enough or get broadcast enough for them to be well known.
They didn't really get the recognition that they deserved.
Right.
But they were great artists. You can say they were the men behind the scene of the music.
I agree. Yeah. Did you get down to Maxwell Street? Did you?
Yeah, I got down to Maxwell Street. I remember when I was about 5 years old. I witnessed. I was down there. My stepdad was down there. He was down there playing with Jimmy Reed. He was down there. He played a lot down there with Johnny Lee Hooker. There was a whole, and I remember seeing the first woman drummer, which was Johnny Mae Dawson.
Johnny Mae Dawson, who has been on this show.
Yeah, she was the first woman drummer that I watched, because you know she used to also play drums for Jimmy too. You know, played on some
right, and I think she helped write
songs for him.
Yeah. And she's still around. So if you get a chance to see Johnny Mae Dawson, please do. She's up in age now, but she's still She's still kicking.
Yeah, she's one of the mothers of the blues.
Yeah, it's good that she's getting some recognition. Uh, as far as drummers go, is there anyone that sticks out as being a major influence, would you say? Anybody?
I say who stands out to be a major influence, I'd say that would be Cassell Barrow and Minehead Willie Williams and Chicken House Shorty.
And Chicken House Shorty. And he's probably the one I know the least about. I don't know that he recorded at all, did he?
Yeah, I mean he did some recording, but not very much. You know, he didn't do very much, but he was a great, excellent